This month on Focus Black Oklahoma, join us as we hear about the West Texas community under threat from the ONEOK Saguaro Connector Pipeline.
Find out about a nonprofit organization working to prevent human trafficking in Tulsa.
Learn about the Oklahoma Democratic Party's newly elected vice chair in Congressional District 3.
Discover the legacy of Tallahassee as one of Oklahoma's all-black towns.
Listen to how a Syrian refugee is using food as an avenue to share culture. Discuss 2S LGBTQIA+ inclusion with two queer teenagers.
And laugh along with Chaz Stevens about his hilarious encounter with a little horse. All this and more on Focus Black Oklahoma.
Focus Black Oklahoma is sponsored by the Black Church Traditions and African American Faith Life program at Phillips Seminary, offering a master's degree in social justice online and in person. Learn more at wherefaithleads.com.
This is Focus Black Oklahoma. I'm Jacob Littlebear.
And I'm Kuma Roberts.
Last month, FBO correspondent Nick Alexandrov introduced us to the West Texas community under threat from the ONEOK Saguaro Connector Pipeline. Here's Nick with the second part of that story.
Let's go back to September 2021. That's when the first episode of our three-part Battle for Greenwood series aired.
Today, Greenwood is a ghost of its former self. Black ownership there of land, of businesses.
In that installment, we raised questions about
ONEOK Field,
the minor league ballpark where the Tulsa Drillers play, the ONEOK natural gas project I covered last month, the Saguaro Connector Pipeline, charted to pass through West Texas, isn't a repeat of that stadium saga, but the two stories rhyme.
All right, welcome everyone to our official opening of ONEOK Field.
As ONEOK Field opened in April 2010,
local news coverage placed the stadium in, quote, downtown Tulsa, unquote. But it's in the Greenwood district. Its southeastern edge abuts Greenwood and Archer, across the street from the Green Arch building, at the far corner from the Greenwood Rising History Center.
To hear the full story of that ballpark's inception, check out Battle for Greenwood's Street Fight episode. It's streaming everywhere, and co-host Colby Webster gets into ONEOK Field at the 31-minute, 30-second mark. But the main takeaway is this. The stadium land was acquired in a manner best described as, yes, I'm going there, inside baseball. Just before construction started, the Tulsa Development Authority, the entity behind urban renewal, donated most of the site to the Tulsa Stadium Trust. That trust got just one bid for the $40 million ballpark. It came from Phil Lakin, the city councilor and longtime CEO of the Tulsa Community Foundation. That foundation is oil billionaire George Kaiser's philanthropic arm. Today, the Tulsa County website lists the Stadium Trust's mailing address as 124 East 4th Street downtown. That's where Frederick Dorwart, president of the George Kaiser Family Foundation, has his law office. Dorwart has represented Kaiser's oil and gas interests on several occasions. But whatever questions surround the ballpark's land acquisition process, the project redounds today to ONEOK's benefit. Now the firm's name calls to mind family outings on summer evenings and not, say,
this outrage, this newest outrage on our home that threatens our water, our air, and our way of life.
That's Bill Guerra Addington. He's a long-term nature defender and lifelong resident of Sierra Blanca, a small, remote town in West Texas. ONEOK's Saguaro Connector Pipeline will pass through the Chihuahuan Desert near his hometown. It's a place that shares some features with the Greenwood district.
They're very poor, underrepresented. They're just abused and rolled over by mining operations and extraction operations of all kinds. and it's treated as essentially a wasteland, and the people have no voice. They simply don't matter. That is egregious from any social justice perspective.
Coyne Gibson is a
research engineer and scientist
in Fort Davis, Texas. He describes ONEOK's Saguaro Connector as it appears in the company's FERC application, not as a gas pipeline, but as
a total legal fiction.
FERC is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. It has a permitting process which corporations planning to build pipelines have to go through. To that end, ONEOK filed its application for the Saguaro Connector on December 20th. That document includes a map of the pipeline's planned route, beginning at the Waha Hub, a major natural gas site in the Permian Basin, and ending 150 miles to the southwest at the Mexican border. But ONEOK's application is for less than 1% of that mileage. When I contacted ONEOK for comment, the firm first asked for my questions. I emailed back a list. In response, Anel Moro, a communications consultant with the company and the project's contact person, sent a link to the FERC's website and a one-sentence summary of the project. Her summary describes the pipeline as, quote, a 1,000-foot-long border crossing facility, unquote. The Sierra Club disputes this description. They lay out their criticism in a protest submitted to the FERC in February. I spoke to that letter's co-author.
My name is Rebecca McCrary, and I'm an associate attorney for the Sierra Club.
In her view, ONEOK's framing of the project, its emphasis on that 1,000-foot section, is strategic.
I think they probably wrote it this way to skirt the environmental review for the entire pipeline project.
She says a full review would factor in
a whole laundry list of issues. Those impacts include, but they're not limited to, impacts to lands from pipeline construction and operation, waterways, protected and sensitive species, all from the construction and maintenance of the pipeline and pipeline right-of-way. There's also impacts to air, light, noise pollution, also from construction and operation of the pipeline.
ONEOK insists its application conforms to settled norms. Its rebuttal document, in answer to the challenges filed by groups like the Sierra Club and Public Citizen, and by West Texas residents, encourages the FERC to dismiss the protests, and that doing so would be consistent with the FERC's practice and precedent. The company has a point. This isn't the first FERC application to look just at a small part of a project. There's Spectra Energy's Valley Crossing Pipeline, for example. It runs from Agua Dulce, Texas, to the Gulf of Mexico east of Brownsville. Another case, Energy Transfer Partners' Trans-Pecos Pipeline, spanning the distance from Fort Stockton, Texas, to Ojinaga, Mexico. Coyne Gibson spent years fighting the Trans-Pecos Pipeline, and he argues that firms like Energy Transfer Partners and ONEOK
essentially follow a cookbook. We're permitting with the FERC. It's a boilerplate process. The claim is that this pipeline has really no environmental impact because only 1,000 feet of it crosses the river, and they claim that is, in fact, harm-free, which is contrary to reality.
We should know soon whether the Saguaro Connector will become the new reality for West Texans. In recent press releases, ONEOK has set a mid-year target for its final investment decision on the project. If it's greenlit, expect groups like the Sierra Club and individuals like Bill Guerra Addington to ratchet up their opposition. For Focus, Black Oklahoma, I'm Nick Alexandrov in Sierra Blanca.
Tulsa has been known for being a hub for everything from oil and gas industries to Art Deco architecture and Western swing music. Today, however, Tulsa is at risk of becoming known as a hub for human trafficking. One local nonprofit is working to change that. Here's Anthony Cherry with details.
Slavery isn't just found in old history books. Human trafficking is a sobering reality for many vulnerable young people in Oklahoma. In response, resourceful individuals and organizations join forces to take a stand against the exploitation of vulnerable human beings. One of these organizations geared up for the fight against human trafficking is the Youth Philanthropy Initiative, or YPI. YPI is an organization based in Tulsa, created and funded by the Schusterman Family Philanthropies. The overall goal of various YPI projects is to influence and spark change amongst teenagers in the Tulsa metropolitan area. A specific cohort from this initiative, guided by their resilience and determination, have placed themselves at the forefront of the fight against human trafficking by developing curriculum to educate other teens on this dangerous industry.
And we found a lot of stories in that particular monthly meeting about people being trafficked in surrounding states and being brought to Oklahoma because of the hub that it creates in human trafficking because of the Route 66. And so it just makes Oklahoma even more at risk to be human trafficked. And so that's why we're trying to educate so much on it.
Maddie Phillips is on a team of 24 other compassionate teenagers dedicated to combating human trafficking. She is currently a rising junior in high school.
We wanted to define human trafficking to make it the most accessible for teens and the most easy to understand. We said that it's the use of force or coercion through social media or in person to obtain someone against their will to commit an act of either sexual trafficking or labor trafficking.
This curriculum is being developed for students their own age.
Our purpose statement that we developed right after we decided on the project is it kind of revolves around creating a broader youth awareness on the severity and the tactics that traffickers use and the common warning signs if you're being human trafficked or if someone around you is being human trafficked. It's also enabling students in our community to be able to apply these strategies for prevention to not only keep themselves safe, but also keep their peers and the people around them safe.
Emily Curzon is an adult coach tasked with mentoring and supporting Maddie's cohort of youth philanthropists.
What's unique about their project related to human trafficking is that their emphasis is on educating teens like them, raising awareness for the teens that they found as they were interviewing their peers and their friends, hey, we don't know anything about this, and it's actually everywhere. And social media is one of the big ways that people are trafficked. And we're all on social media. So it was incredibly relevant and also incredibly sort of a hidden issue.
Emily was vetted and hired directly by Maddie's cohort of students to help bring their mission to fruition. She brings years of experience and expertise to this project.
We were talking about, everyone's seen the movie Taken with Liam Neeson, and that was kind of the image that comes to mind when you think about human trafficking. But the reality, as the students were researching, was I think we even had a couple of students that were like, you know what? I may have been targeted. I may have had someone send me a DM on Instagram that I didn't know, and what were they trying to do? And I think that the emotions that the students had as they started realizing, oh, wow, I'm a potential victim. What can I do to protect myself? And how do I tell all of my friends? How do I equip them with the knowledge to make safer choices and to spread the word that being trafficked doesn't look like we think it looks in the movies? Yes, maybe that's happening, but it's much more subtle.
Phillips shares the value of the research necessary to develop sound curriculum.
I personally thought a lot that human trafficking was something that happened in other countries to people who are maybe a lot less fortunate than myself or people in my area. But human trafficking, unfortunately, doesn't really apply to a specific demographic. It can happen to anyone.
Phillips expands on misconceptions about the demographics that are most vulnerable.
A lot of research we found, it's kind of unfortunate that human trafficking doesn't discriminate against any demographic. If you breathe, then you could be human trafficked. But a lot that we found in our research is obviously you hear more about women and girls being human trafficked, but you don't hear as much about men being trafficked. And that's probably what we're trying to tackle is how many people are different types of people are being human trafficked and how we can't just focus on one demographic of people because there's a lot of people we have to help and a lot of people we have to support.
Maddie and her peers spent a great deal of time researching and developing ideas for the project.
A lot that we've learned about the severity of human trafficking is the tactics that human traffickers use. So a lot of that has come through social media. In the recent decades of social media becoming so much more popular is human traffickers are able to reach people that they wouldn't normally be able to reach because it's just at the click of a button. And so you can reach anyone by just sending a message on Instagram or Facebook or other social media platforms.
Parents of young people with phones, MacBooks, iPads, and other devices may often underestimate the level of attentiveness necessary to shield their children from exposure to this predatory industry.
I think to a parent, it's just more of an encouragement to do the work that we're doing because of the curriculum that we're building to educate on what human trafficking is and like the awareness of it in teenagers around Oklahoma. I think it's just a reassurance to parents that this is going to be taught and their kids are going to be educated on it.
The very existence of YPI and other youth-led initiatives highlights the significance of empowering young people and giving them the platforms to address pressing global issues. For more information, contact Youth Philanthropy Initiative at 918-872-9777. For Focus, Black Oklahoma, I'm Anthony Cherry in Tulsa.
Even in a deep red state like Oklahoma, the Democratic Party hasn't thrown in the towel. In the 3rd Congressional District, a young Cheyenne-Arapaho citizen has recently been elected as the Oklahoma Democratic Party's vice chair. Shonda Little has more.
Oklahoma's 3rd Congressional District, or CD3, is a culturally and resource-rich district that amasses 34,000 acres, or roughly 48% of the state. In the far western side of the district, tiny Roger Mills County shares its western border with the Texas Panhandle. With a population of only 3,442 and not a single stoplight, Roger Mills County has more cattle than humans. However, the sweeping prairies and burnt orange sunsets are sacred to the Cheyenne and Arapaho people, whose ancestral homeland makes up all of Roger Mills County and a great part of CD3 as a whole. Roger Mills County is especially sacred to Cheyenne and Arapaho people as it sits atop the Ogallala Aquifer, one of the world's largest underground aquifers, providing vital clean water for thousands of years. Roger Mills County is now also home to the Oklahoma Democratic Party's CD3 vice chair, 19-year-old Joshua Beaver. Beaver is a proud member of the Cheyenne and Arapaho Nation. He was elected to this important position on May 6th by his fellow CD3 Democrats.
All my life, I knew growing up that all my family has been here in Hammond. My family has a little bit of land out in the country, about 10 miles from Hammond, and we've built a house on our land out there. And we've been there for really decades.
As the newly elected CD3 vice chair for the Oklahoma Democratic Party, Beaver is ready to use his skills in technology and social media that come naturally to him as a young person to bring in more young people of all races and genders to be active in politics. He also believes his involvement can gain the trust of elders within his tribal nation and other tribal nations to become active. Alicia Andrews, who recently won her re-election as chair to the Oklahoma Democratic Party, echoed Beaver's enthusiasm while celebrating the diversity that he brings to the ODP's State Central Committee.
In the Oklahoma Democratic Party, the average age of a Democratic voter is 56, and they're white. It's important that we broaden who participates in our party, who participates in voting. And the idea of Joshua Beaver being the vice chair of Congressional District 3 is exciting. He represents an intersectionality that we need in our party. He brings youth. He brings diversity and being a tribal citizen. He brings just that he's new. Those are the kinds of things that we need to bring in the party. If you see it, you can be it. And if more young people see that there are more young people involved in the process, they won't think that it's being run by old fogies like me. And maybe they will come in and they will contribute and they will tell their friends to register and participate.
Beaver doesn't just know the challenges faced by rural people, by young people, and by Indigenous people. He lives it. He is a witness to the challenges his mother faced to receive cancer treatment in a place with shuttering hospitals and a lack of health care. He knows how vital rural schools are to a small community. He has seen the ugly reality of the United States' broken treaties to his and other Indigenous people.
I think it's important to note that we've been through a lot as a tribe and that we are still going and that we're still here. And through everything that we've been stripped of, through things that we haven't been able to hold on to, the things that we have been able to hold on to is each other. We've been able to keep our language, to keep our ways going here in Hammond.
Beaver is currently enrolled in vocational school while serving as a manager at his local Dollar General in Hammond, Oklahoma. He is actively organizing a voter registration drive focused on young people and indigenous people. For Focus, Black Oklahoma, this is Shonda Little in Cheyenne.
It's Pride Month, and amidst the current controversy around 2S LGBTQIA rights, June is a time to create spaces for reflecting on intersectionality and what it really means to feel included. Smriti Iyengar talks with two queer teens.
Pride is a month-long celebration of queerness that has only become more and more mainstream the longer it's been around. In a place like Oklahoma, where the state of gay and trans rights only ever seems to get worse, many are in desperate need of an explosion of color and a place to meet people with a multitude of experiences and backgrounds. Pride Month also provides a space and time for conversations about all things queer, from appreciating the safe spaces in Tulsa, to disputing homophobic rhetoric, to discussing intersectionality, to detailing what allies can actually do for us. Two queer teenagers with unique viewpoints join me in this discussion. Delaney Clendenin, who uses they-them pronouns, and Dima Shields, who uses she-they pronouns, discuss communities, those that are accepting and those that are not. First, we hear from Delaney, then Dima.
With my mom, she is very, you can talk about anything. And with my friends, because we all have not the same experience, which I think is what makes it so interesting, but the same morals and values to where you can talk about something and you're not being put down and you're not, even if we don't have the same outlook on something, it's still going to be an open space to talk about it.
Not everybody in that space understands exactly what it means to be LGBT. They don't understand the concept. They still accept me even though they don't understand it.
Honestly, there are a lot of really good spaces here. In the adult world, it's a lot of good open spaces where people will ask hey, what pronouns do you want to go by when you're here?
Not all communities are welcoming or safe spaces. First, we hear from Dima, then Delaney.
Well, I grew up Christian, so I grew up in a church. At one point, the pastor did say something I had to tell this lady that her dead gay son had to go to hell. And so in that moment, I didn't really feel safe in that community anymore.
There's such duality of the community in Tulsa especially, because the people who accept hard, and they want you to feel safe and they want you to feel happy. And the people who don't accept also don't accept hard. They want you to feel unsafe. They will do everything in their power to make you feel less.
I've never felt intense oppressive homophobia before, but I have felt passive comments about it. And so it's even if it's not necessarily directed toward you, you still feel like it is.
In certain spaces in my school where you have people, they will sit there and be gay people shouldn't have rights. Gay people shouldn't be able to go to the bathroom. It's those kind of things where you have to sit there and be how do you think that? But you can't say anything because you don't want to be that person that has to take it from them, It's kind of one of those things where you just have to sit there and you have to take it and you have to act like that isn't chipping away at your very being.
State lawmakers have proposed 45 anti-2S LGBTQIA+ laws since February of this year. 15 of those bills target healthcare for transgender people. Delaney speaks to some of the concerns complicated by these bills.
Everyone wants to say children are too young. Why are you pushing that on my kid? Oh, you're gay. Keep that out of stores. Keep that out of storybooks. You can't do that to a child. But then again, you see it all the time, in Target with a little baby shirt and it's women love me. It's almost for themselves of look, I'm raising this manly man. I'm raising this girly girl. I am a good parent. It is definitely something to make the person in charge feel better.
Gender and intersectionality are critically important concepts in the queer community, especially for folks of color. Here's Dima.
For me, I feel being multiple minorities already, being Black, being Native American, being a woman even, it's walking around the street, you don't feel safe anyway. It's when you think of, oh my God, there's another thing that makes me unsafe to exist. That's a really terrifying thing. And so while you're coming to terms with yourself, okay, I'm aromantic, or okay, I'm bisexual, it's like, it makes that journey a lot harder because you automatically want to detach that part of yourself. Because you're like, why would I want something that makes people hate me? A lot of minorities have this idea that because they're minorities, they have to protect themselves. And so they're like, we've created this space for our minority. So if you're another minority, we don't want you, like, I don't want to say infecting, but that's kind of what it feels like. We don't want you infecting this space that's for these people. Like, if you make somebody in our community feel unsafe because of what you are, well, that's just awful. So we're sorry, but stay away. And so it definitely is very isolating.
What makes a good ally, and how can they best support the queer community? We hear from Delaney first, then Dima.
Don't let your specific community that has bigotry and hatred towards another community put that hatred in you. You really have to think, standing up for someone can sometimes make the biggest difference. I feel like everyone needs to go, what are my beliefs? What do I believe? Not what has people told me to believe. What are my beliefs? It's a big thing. I feel like that is something everyone should consider, is that you don't have to believe what everyone else believes in your community, in your space.
I feel like the biggest thing for me, it's understanding that just because you don't understand something, that doesn't mean it's wrong. Like, it's okay to tell your child, I don't understand you, and still love them. Like, that is completely okay. And so a lot of people have this idea, just like they hear it and they panic. I want you to think that in that moment, you're not more scared than your child is telling you that they're gay. You're not more afraid of them. You're not. It's just a fact. So you need to be the bigger person. And even if you can't accept them immediately, at least start trying to accept them.
For Focus Black Oklahoma, I'm Smriti Iyengar in Tulsa.
You're listening to Focus Black Oklahoma.
In February, we introduced our All Black Town series, exploring the history of towns established by freedmen in Indian Territory. This month, Jasmine Beavar-Toby takes us to Tallahassee.
Though it is the first documented all-Black town in Oklahoma, Tallahassee is likely the least known Oklahoma Black town still in existence. Driving through, many would question the existence of this town. However, it is still a Black community faced with fighting for its today while holding on to its past. Tallahassee derives its name from the Creek Native American language, Tulawa meaning town, and Ahasee meaning something old. In 1850, the Creek Nation established their school, Tallahassee Mission. The school would be one of the foundations of the Tallahassee heritage. Another foundation of the town was the main Native American passageway, Texas Road. This road was a main transport to Texas, but was also used as a southern route to California throughout the gold rush. Travel swelled along the route until the Civil War, when it became a strategic centerfold for the Union and Confederate forces. Though the use of this road picked back up after the war ended, it was more useful to local wagon traffic due to the railroad being built along this route connecting Texas, Kansas, and Missouri. Texas Road became the Texas Railway and ran through the middle of town. Following the war, in 1881, Creek freedmen, the former enslaved Blacks of the Creek Nation, were gifted Tallahassee as the Native American tribes moved throughout the state to establish other communities. Tallahassee served as a rural center for Black farmers living in the surrounding agricultural market. Tallahassee incorporated in 1907 and slowly became a bustling town. At the entrance, near the railroad, was the A.J. Mason Building, another of the foundations of Tallahassee. Until the 1950s, the building was a general store, then it became a nightclub. More than a century old, this structure is the only remaining historical landmark in the town. Mr. Mason was a pivotal part in the community as he enticed Blacks from the South to move to Tallahassee. Unfortunately, another foundation of Tallahassee was fired. Fire ravaged the first Tallahassee Mission School and then the General Store. The Carter G. Woodson School, a core of the community, also suffered from fire in 2012 when it was burnt down by a young person playing with fireworks. Shalon Youngblood, who spent her childhood in Tallahassee, recalls the school community.
I just remember being able to interact with different types of kids. The elementary and the middle school had their building, kindergarten had their building, and the high school had their building. But it was like we were all on one campus, so we got to see each other and spend time. And even now, unfortunately, I see a lot of people when I go to funerals, I still feel like a little kid when I hug some of them because the memories are how they cared for you in that space at that school. They took, they're like big brothers and sisters, and so we're like a big old family.
In 1985, Robert Bates returned after nearly 30 years in Kansas City. After raising his family and running successful businesses, he was ready to retire in a place he considered home, away from the big city. Listen as he describes his children's reaction to arriving in Tallahassee.
They said, Daddy, 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 you brought us from bright lights to no lights. Ain't no lights down here, so I said, yeah, this is the country.
Mr. Bates remembers starting over in Tallahassee.
Tallahassee was full of people, they had houses on their street and everything, and it was a little thriving town, but they didn't have any kind of business except the post office and a club. They didn't have a store, nothing or anything, so. But when I come back, I had a store, I had a barbecue place, and they wouldn't even buy groceries from me because of the fact that Porter gave them credit, and I didn't know the people, and some of them didn't hardly know me, so I wouldn't give them credit. They wouldn't buy from me, so, I was selling milk, ice cream, bread, groceries and stuff. But they'd go to Porter and buy from Porter instead of buying from me. And I figured, it seems like I'm on my own on this deal. When I built my building, I had one of the older guys, was Mr. Miller. He was sitting across the street at the post office step on the post office porch. He said, Bates, he said, you wasting your money. He said, these people down here are not going to patronize you. I said, well, I got a barbecue place, and I said, as far as I know, people come miles and miles for good barbecue, so I said, I'm going to try it anyway. So that's what I did, and actually it was the truth because I had people coming from Muskogee and Wagner, and then they finally caught on.
Today, Tallahassee is on the mend. Keisha Curran, born and raised in Tallahassee, left as an adult and returned as the town mayor more than 4 years ago. She also acts as the city manager. Mayor Curran shares about the present-day struggles this all-Black town faces while rebuilding.
One of the struggles that Tallahassee has had, of course, has been our water system. Here recently, we have been awarded ARPA funds through the Oklahoma Water Resource Board. And with those funds, we're going to be able to completely redo our system. Another struggle is going to be adequate internet. We have internet that goes out daily. It's either your phone's not working or your internet's not working. And this happens several times a day. And we have several residents who work from home who have to constantly call Windstream out to come figure out why their internet keeps dropping or why their phone's not working.
For years, systems that make up this historic Black town have been attacked, further stifling the identity and potential growth of Tallahassee. Tallahassee has struggled with geographic borders and road development, including maintenance.
Well, when you look at the location of Tallahassee, right, you see where the town sits, and then miles down the road, there's this body of water called Tallahassee Loop. It always baffled me. How can Tallahassee be here and the loop is here, but everything in between it, which is including the McDonald's, everything in between it is not considered Tallahassee? Like, how did that happen? I have been told it was due to statehood. I'm not sure. A lot of the boundaries of Tallahassee were shrunk after statehood and combined to this box of, this is your Black town, this is your community, this is where you're going to sit. We would definitely love to be able to get the taxes that are coming in from the McDonald's and E-Z-Go, because it's very, very close to the Tallahassee city limits. If we were able to do that, our town would look a lot different. You might even see a city park. Another struggle is our zip code. The town of Tallahassee was stripped of its zip code when our post office was closed. This is a big issue. We've contacted the U.S. Postal Service, trying to figure out how we can get it back, what we can do. And one of the questions was asked to us, well, why do you want it? Of course we want it. We want our zip code back. It's a part of Tallahassee's identity, and still have not found an actual reason why our zip code was taken.
Mayor Curran further shared how this has put a strain on the residents of Tallahassee, who often don't receive their packages or have to correspond with the nearby town to pick their packages up because of similarities in addresses in the same zip code. The post office building still exists as the current Tallahassee Civic Center and office of the mayor. However, it is not a functional post office. Similar to other stories that Focus Black Oklahoma has covered regarding Black and Indigenous lands, Tallahassee has experienced the systemic fallout of redlining. Mayor Keisha recalls the first time she heard about redlining.
I can remember when I first became mayor, I was so excited. I'm like, I'm young, I'm in here, I'm just going to do everything I can. I'm reaching out to past mayors, trying to get information, trying to see if we can get loans to do things. And I was speaking to a past mayor, and he said, "You're not going to be able to get anything." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Why not?" He said, "Because Tallahassee is redlined." That was the first time I ever heard of that. And I kind of just took it as, this guy don't know what he's talking about.
The National Community Reinvestment Coalition defines redlining as a practice that began as early as the 1930s, where low-income and minority communities were intentionally cut off from lending and investment opportunities. Historically, this discriminatory practice has been a leading race-based tactic to keep communities of color from economic wealth. Today, many communities like Tallahassee suffer not only from lower life expectancy and higher incidences of chronic diseases. Redlining imposed barriers to the flow of capital in many low-income neighborhoods and in Black and other minority communities, creating the circumstances for long-term racial segregation. Also, redlining kept people of color from organizing to improve their communities. Mr. Bates remembers dealing with this as a former mayor of Tallahassee.
Yeah, everybody was, they worked for the white folks down here, and the white folks didn't want Tallahassee to change, and they were scared to, vote on things because they thought maybe they'd lose the job, the older people did, and just, the whites sort of scared them off from voting, and me extending the boundaries to 69 Highway and up there at the toll gate, McDonald's.
Though the momentum of development has been suppressed, impeding the process of engaging community members who have either passed away or moved away due to the restrictions, Mayor Curran is hopeful about the rebirth of Tallahassee.
But with all of the advertisement and branding that we've done with our town, we have attracted a lot of past residents that grew up in Tallahassee that are currently moving back and doing something with their family land. So we are hoping to continue to brand our community, reach out to those to see if they will move back. That's definitely a great hope for us. And right now we have 4 families moving back.
Mayor Keisha Curran and the affectionately named Dream Team, the Wildcat Foundation, are implementing a beautification plan in Tallahassee. In February of this year, the town hosted the Tullathon to raise funds and awareness for all the projects in the works. In the future, there will be blue and gold flowers lacing Lincoln, the main street leading to the updated community center. Shalon Youngblood, a board member of the foundation, details her childhood memories of the field center and the upcoming plans to revitalize it into a center for the community.
That's actually the gym that we're going to be restoring to a community center, the John Ford Junior Gym. Like, everybody would come play. Like, it would be packed, there would be snacks, people would be outside, the kids would be outside playing, running, hide and seek, whatever. They would be in there. It would be the entire day of Sunday.
The Tallahassee Wildcats Foundation page boasts a quote that reads, "We never realize the value of something in our life until it becomes a memory." The Tallahassee Day of Celebration occurs July 22nd, 2023. The all-day event includes a parade in the morning followed by the Miss and Miss Teen pageant in the afternoon. Funds raised by the pageant will go to completing and maintaining the John Ford Junior Community Center, the A.J. Mason Building Project, scholarships, stipends for students of the pageant and the Tallahassee Botillion. There is a rich history in Tallahassee of community, of mentorship, and family. Memories of a strong village keep the hope alive for the mayor and the team working alongside her to carry on the vision of the free Blacks that laid the foundations.
We are here. We are going to thrive. We are making our way back to what our community can be. We are going to make our ancestors proud.
For Focus, Black Oklahoma, I'm Jasmine Bivar-Toby in Tallahassee.
Food is something that brings people together, and no one knows that better than Fatou Kablan, a Syrian refugee who resettled here through the New Tulsans Initiative. Fatou has been sharing her culture with All Souls Unitarian Church. Carlos Moreno has details.
Fatou breaks down a head of romaine lettuce that she'll pair with parsley, mint, fresh herbs, tomatoes, cucumbers, some lemon juice, and oil for a refreshing summer salad.
تعلمت الطبخ وأنا بالبيت يعني وعمري صغير.
I learned how to cook at home. Nobody really taught me. I learned by watching family, and I taught myself a lot of what I know how to cook.
Members at Tulsa's All Souls Church have enjoyed Fatou's cooking at events and celebrations, the most recent being the Spring Art Market, benefiting the church's youth program. In the kitchen at All Souls, she will serve this salad with some hummus and tabbouleh and a great big batch of kibbeh, which are football-shaped croquettes stuffed with meat. As she's cooking, Fatou talks about Syrian food being similar to the Lebanese dishes Tulsans might already be familiar with.
Different regions have different foods, but they're very similar, except in certain regions, like they'll add either a fruit or a vegetable just to be different, but it's all the same.
Fatou, her husband Mohammed, and their children arrived a little more than a year ago in Tulsa from Dara, close to Syria's southern border with Jordan, and about 50 miles south of the capital city of Damascus. In March of 2011, in Dara, a group of young people were arrested for spray painting graffiti on the walls of their school. The messages spray painted were seen as threatening to President Bashar al-Assad. Protests followed in Damascus, launching a civil war in Syria, which continues today. Citizen-led revolutions in Tunisia and Syria in 2011 sparked widespread anti-government uprisings across much of the Arab world during 2011 and 2012, known today as the Arab Spring. The United Nations estimates that over the course of 12 years, 6.9 million Syrians have been displaced and 306,000 civilians have died. Yet al-Assad remains in power. War and recent earthquakes have left 70% of the Syrian population now in need of humanitarian aid. The journey to the United States has left Mohammed and Fatou grateful for the help they've received and eager to participate in the American dream. Mohammed is currently working to start an upholstery business, and Fatou is taking a chance in starting a catering business.
يعني إنه أنا هاي الشغلة اللي بعرفها إنه يعني ما عندي مثلا شغلة تانية إني أشتغلها إنه بعرف الطبخ ويعني كثير ناس حكوا لي إنه أكلك طيب.
It seems I'm very good at cooking, and it's one of the most things that I know how to do. And even when I did a lot of cooking for the church and for people here, they really liked my food, and so I decided why not.
One of the best ways to get to know someone's culture is to try their food. As Fatou gets to know Tulsa, she's also exploring the city's culinary diversity and hopes to share some of her homeland with others.
I really enjoy trying different foods here, especially in America. I really enjoy lots of food that I've tried here in America and learned more about the American culture. And I'm very, very happy to introduce my food to the people here and to introduce part of our culture to them, which will make it feel more like we're home.
Adjusting to the pressure to assimilate in the United States can sometimes be overwhelming, but Fatou has a refreshing take on being a part of this great melting pot, finding common ground in cooking.
I feel like there was a bit of pressure, but it was a positive pressure so that I can integrate more and see the similarities actually between the American culture and my culture, and realize that, you know, through food I can do that and keep all of it together.
According to the Center for Migration Studies of New York, the United States has resettled about 21,000 Syrian refugees since 2011. Resettlement from Syria slowed down during the COVID-19 pandemic, with only 1,256 Syrian refugees admitted to the United States in 2021 and 4,556 in 2022. The city of Tulsa launched the New Tulsans Initiative in late 2020 with a statement from Mayor G.T. Bynum that reads, quote, "As Tulsa grows and becomes a diverse world-class city, the New Tulsans Initiative Welcoming Plan will provide pathways for socially responsible immigrant integration and will seek out opportunities that benefit both native-born and immigrant residents of Tulsa." Unquote. Here's Fatu's husband, Mohammed.
حابين نحكي عن إنه إحنا مبسوطين وإنه جينا على أمريكا طبعا وبنشكر الحكومة
We're very, very
الأمريكية.
grateful to be in America, and we're very happy to be here. And we thank the people who brought us there. We thank the American government, and we thank everybody who was involved in bringing us here. And the future for us is for our kids, because they're in school and they're going to be going to college. So we're here to make sure that our kids have the best future possible.
To learn about how to support Fatu and Mohammed, contact All Souls Church at 918-743-2363. For Focus Black Oklahoma, I'm Carlos Moreno in Tulsa.
What kid didn't want a pony when they were growing up? Chad Stevens was one of the lucky ones, or so he thought, until he met Two-Face, a miniature horse with a story that will have you laughing until you are a little horse.
As I grow older, I start to remember less, and that begins to worry me. I pray I don't forget the memories that made me happy, the memories that taught me lessons, and the memories that made me teary-eyed. I truly appreciate all of these memories, but one memory I wish to forget is the day I chose not to listen to my father and ride a miniature horse. The main character of this story isn't about me, but instead centers around a little fella named Two-Face. For those who do not know what a miniature horse is, allow me to make a slight detour to explain. Miniature horses are just big, beautiful horses like Mr. Ed, but just a lot smaller. Think of horses like the NBA. They're tall, strong, and athletic. Michael Jordan would be like Seabiscuit, and a miniature horse would be like Spud Webb. Now, this isn't a Spud Webb diss, because unlike Spud Webb, miniature horses show no signs of respect for lives that are not their own. Sometimes the stars perfectly align and bring lovers together. Sometimes they align perfectly and you find some money on the street. In the case of Two-Face and I's meeting, I doubt the stars were aligned perfectly, but instead were just bunched in with each other like kindergartners in a lunch line. Two-Face came by my way due to some old-fashioned yeehaw economics. My father and a man had bartered that he would allow Two-Face to stay at our home. In return, the man promised my father some wood pallets, an even trade on paper, but it did not take long for us to realize that we were bamboozled because Two-Face was not a pony you could ride, but instead was a miniature horse. And as far as looks could go, Two-Face was a handsome little guy. He was a two-colored horse with half of his face being white, the other being brown. His eyes were so amazing that he had two different colors of eyes, a blue one and a brown one. He stood about waist high and was pretty stocky built, a real stud of a horse. Well, he literally was a stud horse. Something Bob Barker and I could agree on was a huge problem. When you watch The Omen, it takes a little bit to realize that Damien was the real villain. Well, it did not take us long to realize we had our own equine equivalent of the Antichrist. Within the first 2 weeks, Two-Face was the culprit of several bites, the attempter of several kicks, and just a habitual line stepper. Except for me. He would eat out of my hands and loved when I rubbed his head between his ears. When it came to Two-Face, I had plenty of patience because I had knew I was his chosen favorite. It was my destiny to ride him, just like Bellerophon and Pegasus. Against my father's wishes and warnings, I took it amongst myself to saddle Two-Face and prove I was different and I was the best cowboy. So, with the confidence of a Greek hero, I saddled the little guy with the saddle that was far too large for him and far too small for me. But what is life if there are no challenges? When Bellerophon fell from Pegasus and fell to his demise, it was because of two factors. A horsefly sent by Zeus, the other was his ego. At 15 years old, I learned that an ego would be my demise as well. The ride began smooth, and my confidence was soaring. Until I heard Two-Face give a screeching neigh at the pitch that can only be comparable to nails on a chalkboard. He had smelled the mares in the pasture, and nature had quickly changed the course of the ride. Two-Face began to run and buck. I tried my hardest to pull back on the reins to stop him, but I quickly remembered that the bridle I used was not gifted to me by Athena, but instead was too big and found its way out of Two-Face's mouth. I then went to grab the saddle horn to stabilize myself until I remembered that my saddle was too large for him and again, too small for me, meaning there was only one option left: jumping off. Growing up a cowboy comes with many life lessons. The two most important are to cowboy up, and the second being the ground is always there to catch you. So while Two-Face continued his tribute to the 1992 smash hit Jump by Criss Cross, I began to count down. 1, 2. There was no need for a 3. Because before I even began to say 3, I had already number 2'd myself. My body flew high from Two-Face's back, but I'm sure my soul ascended past the clouds into the heavens. The split second of calm in the air immediately faded away when I landed on my tailbone. All my hopes and aspirations were erased after that ride. After groaning in pain for 15 minutes, I finally got up. I took everything off of Two-Face and put him back in his pen. He and I never shared eye contact with each other again. In our last nonverbal conversations, Two-Face reminded me that evil can come in the cutest little packages. 1 week later, we gave Two-Face back to his owner, and we never got the pallets.
Focus Black Oklahoma is produced in partnership with KOSU Radio, Tulsa Artists Fellowship, and Tri-City Collective. Additional support is provided by the George Kaiser Family Foundation, the Charles and Lynn Schusterman Family Philanthropies, and the Commemoration Fund. Our theme music is by Moffett Music. Focus Black Oklahoma's executive producers are Karesh Ali Lansana and Bracken Clark. Our associate producers are Smriti Iyengar and Jesse Ulrich. Our production intern is Sheridan Jenkins. You can visit us online at kosu.org or tricitycollective.com/Focus Black Oklahoma and on YouTube at Tri-City Collective. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Focus Black OK. You can hear Focus Black Oklahoma on demand for free at kosu.org, NPR One, NPR.org, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The KOSU Daily Podcast provides you with local news to get you on your way every Monday through Friday morning. The KOSU Daily includes stories from our state impact reporters looking into topics including healthcare and education. We'll also have reports on Indigenous affairs in the state of Oklahoma, along with rural and agricultural issues. You can find the KOSU Daily wherever you get your podcasts or at kosu.org. The KOSU Daily, Oklahoma news, every weekday.